I'm Alan Robarge, a psychotherapist and a relationship coach. Welcome to Improve Your Relationships, where I like to talk about attachment injuries and healing attachment trauma. And on this video, we are talking about a dysfunctional cycle of insecurely attached relating and how we co-create and co-participate in the process in creating this dynamic so that it is a no-win situation for everybody involved. And that we just are not going to make this work because it is rooted in dysfunction. It is not rooted in healthy relating. So in a way, we're doomed from day one, and we pick the right person to do this dysfunctional dance. And this video is about naming what are the dance steps. And I've identified 5 of them, or 5 aspects. There's actually multiple dance steps within each section, but trying to hone in on naming this as an evolutionary process. Part 1, part 2, all the way to part 5. We're on part number 4. This is a video that is being created in a series. So please heads up and pay attention that there are 3 other videos already before this. We're on video number 4. I'm operating or working from a specific handout where I have really tried to name through this paragraph format of some writing to capture what is this cycle. And if you want to follow along and get a copy of this worksheet, please do go to alanrobarge.com/the word cycle. This is about a dysfunctional cycle, so it's the word cycle. In the description, the notes of the this YouTube video, you will also find a link there that might be a little helpful. And please know that this content is the core content that is driving and informing the community of like-minded people who are coming together for the membership website that I've created. And as a community, we get a chance to dialogue and talk about what the heck is going on here and what is this pattern, and where do we, where do we have aspects of our stories that overlap and are similar, and then there's variations of this. Also keep in mind what I'm going to say. I said at the end of the last video, some of this content is really hard. It's hard to hear. So just pace yourself. Also take it with a grain of salt. Everything that I'm saying is not true for everybody. There's degrees, there's range. We all have different set of resources. That's the one thing that for me personally is so frustrating about sort of the industry of relationship coaching and the industry of experts and gurus promoting their brand of how to be in healthier, better relationships, is that it's always assumed that there's this kind of absolute stance of I know, I have the truth, you don't, let me tell you how to do it. Please don't put me in that position or even take this to be. There's a range, there's a variation. We also simultaneously could be having securely attached relating and simultaneously have some real resources and skills that are getting overlapped with some of this more dysfunctional relating. So isn't that confusing that they in a way that they coexist? My point is, you're in the driver's seat of your life, and you're only going to know if this does or doesn't apply. Maybe not all of it applies. Maybe some of it's going to push your buttons. Maybe there's parts of it that don't apply. Please edit out. Get a copy of this, scribble on it, make it your own. However, after many, many years of working with clients, and also quite honestly being in my own relationships that have been bumpy and challenging, I have put this together to say, hey, heads up, here, this is a pattern. Let's just get it out in the open and say, let's look at this pattern and see it as a cycle that we just keep recreating. And we either recreate it within the same relationship with the same person, and we up the ante and make it all the more intense each time, or we end the relationship, or the other person leaves, or the relationship ends us, and then we find someone else, another emotionally unavailable person to practice our own emotional unavailability, and then we just start it all over again. So this is about the perpetual cycling through of suffering, or the repetition of suffering. And oh, isn't that painful stuff? The point of this is to say, let's make this stop. Let's not keep doing this in our lives. It's too painful, and we want to live our life. We want a different kind of life of better relating and secure attachment. So here we go. Number 4, section number 4 in this document begins by saying, when you no longer can ignore the red flags that you picked an emotionally unavailable partner, because you too are emotionally unavailable, you will not cut your losses or take a sobering look at the impossibility of being together. Instead, you will summons an incredible effort to create change in the relationship, which includes pointing out to your partner all the ways that he or she is failing you and all the ways in which he or she needs to change. Wow, we just jumped into just that little section, and it's so meaty, at least for me. I hope you find it meaty. To me, the word impossibility, when you no longer can ignore the red flags that you picked an emotionally unavailable partner because you too are emotionally unavailable, you will not cut your losses or take a sobering look at the impossibility of being together. There's an aspect to this dysfunctional, so many of us, I'm sorry, I'm talking over myself. There's an aspect to this dynamic that we repeatedly err on the side of, I got to make it work, got to make it work, got to make it work. We got, and it's a kind of, even at times, a kind of naive hopefulness, and we just err on the side of really believing that that we are going to resolve this really challenging, calculus, algebra, whatever kind of hardcore math. Like, this presents itself as a real dilemma. Your brain, if you've experienced this, and there's different aspects of what I'm talking about, you know what it's like to just feel this complete impossibleness of this really complex math problem, and you just don't even know where to begin. And one reason, or the reason why it is presenting as so impossible, is because it can't be solved. It's all rooted in dysfunction. It's like dysfunction plus dysfunction does not equal, oh, now all of a sudden I've magically learned how to create a securely attached relationship where we're, engaging in more healthy behaviors. If I come from the point of view of being dysfunctional, and the foundation and the way we're relating already is rooted, and the language that we're speaking, we don't even speak other language. We speak the language of dysfunction. And that's also our behaviors. We're engaging in fueling, as the title says here, co-creating. This is just impossible. And that's what I'm presenting. It's just impossible. And many people this will be in a way a kind of stage. I'm not calling these stages, but this is section number 4. And there's this kind of stage. And for some people, and what I'm going to say is really painful, because some people get stuck here for 3 years. Some people at this point say, I know it's impossible. I know it's dysfunctional. I know that we're both unavailable in different ways. I know this doesn't work. Hey, by the way, let's try to force making it work for the next 7 years. Or some people 13 years. Or some people, deep, great empathy in this moment for people who've been doing this for 20 some years. It's so painful. And yet you can't make it any better, because it's rooted in an impossibility. The whole nature of how you're going about creating a relationship does not even have a healthy foundation. And this impossibility is going to erode our sense of self, and this impossibility is going to induce a learned helplessness. So we lose our agency, we lose our sense of self, our spirit wilts. That's always my most favorite phrase of what happens here. And I realized in this moment I didn't even use that in this document. But our spirit wilts because we're presented with something that is really just saying, you're not going to get what you want. You're just not going to get what you want. I'm getting off on a tangent maybe. Let me start over, jump in, keep going. I have a lot more content to share. So here we go. When you no longer can ignore the red flags that you picked an emotionally unavailable partner because you too are emotionally unavailable, you will not cut your losses or take a sobering look at the impossibility of being together. Instead, you will summons an incredible effort to create change in the relationship, which includes pointing out to your partner all the ways that he or she is failing you and all the ways in which he or she needs to change. You will see your partner as flawed and inadequate and congratulate yourself for being the better, more skilled, more emotionally intelligent partner. Now, again, not everybody does this, so keep that in mind. I might not be talking about you. And if you're doing this and you're realizing it, there is some real compassion and empathy that needs to come in here, because in a way these words are harsh or they're very strong. Not harsh in that my intent is not harsh, but to hear it is really, really hard to hear. In order to get our needs met from a person that we're experiencing as emotionally unavailable, we are going to point out to them everything that they're doing wrong and tell them how they're failing us in hopes that they learn some new skills and would want to connect with us emotionally and give us what we need. Do you just see how, like, that's not going to happen? You know, you don't make some, you're not endearing someone to you by, giving them a long list of how they emotionally, that they cannot connect emotionally, and you're going to give them a point-by-point explanation of how they completely failed to read the situation, they failed to show up here at the right time, they failed to hear the invitation or the cue in the tone of your voice, or how you did XYZ and then you were waiting, and they never responded to the fact that you were waiting for something. And when we just take it upon ourselves through our own distress, we have so much fear and distress, and we're at the end of our rope and we feel like this person is clueless. This person is so clueless and not getting it. And how do I get through to this person? I know, let's just keep telling him or her how there's something wrong with them. You're flawed, you're flawed, you're flawed, you're inadequate, you're inadequate, you're inadequate. There's something wrong. You got to change, you got to change, you got to change. Well, do you realize what you're doing? You're belittling the other person and you are eroding trust, which is the exact opposite of what you're trying to do. Why are we doing this? Because this is rooted in dysfunctional relating, and you're being led by your woundedness and your attachment trauma and your attachment distress. And you can't manage the overwhelm of the truth that this relationship is a no-go anyway. You picked the wrong person and you both don't have skills. And we just will not accept that truth. And instead, we want to really, really fight for change. And it's usually about, well, the other person has to change. If only they could XYZ, then this wouldn't happen. You see how that's a reoccurring thing. That's why this is so hard. That is a very, very common reoccurring thing, is that it's always set up like, yeah, it's the other person. Yeah, they're emotionally unavailable. And if only they knew how to provide you with what you need, and you'll tell them, you'll give them a recipe. You say, do this, do this, do this, do this. Remember last week when you didn't do that? Well, I need to tell you, you need to do this. Every time the person gets that feedback, they're not hearing the details. All they're hearing is, you failed again, you stupid idiot, don't do it, you're inadequate. This makes a person guarded, this makes a person shut down, this undermines trust, and this person does not want to connect with you. And then you're going to come back and go, why don't you want to connect with me? Why aren't you connecting? See, you're doing it again. You're doing it again. You're shutting down, you're not connecting. And this is the word cycle. This document's about being a cycle. Oh my gosh, do you feel how painful this is? We're spiraling down here. When you no longer can ignore the red flags that you picked an emotionally unavailable partner because you too are emotionally unavailable, you will not cut your losses or take a sobering look at the impossibility of being together. Instead, you will summons an incredible effort to create change in the relationship, which includes pointing out to your partner all the ways that he or she is failing you and all the ways in which he or she needs to change. You will see your partner as flawed and inadequate and congratulate yourself for being the better, more skilled, more emotionally intelligent partner. You know what's going on, but they don't get it. They so don't get it, but you get it. You will believe that your assessment of your partner and of the relationship is the right way of seeing the situation. in certain aspects it is the right way, but it's done at the other person's expense, and you still are going to have blinders on because you're leading from the place of getting your needs met, which are rooted in your childhood trauma or rooted in your attachment trauma. So you're still leading from the part of you that's not secure. Thus the reason why this is saying a dysfunctional cycle of insecurely attached relating. So there are going to, you do have some insight. You are seeing things correctly. But the way that we frame it, that we know the right way and that the other person is just so not on board, we have blinders on. The point of that sentence is really to say, hey, heads up, guess what? You also have blinders on here. Otherwise, you wouldn't even find any of this attractive, and you wouldn't be doing this for 3 years or 5 years or 8 years or 14 years. Hopefully you only do it for 6 months. If you do this for 6 months, send me an email and say, guess what? I only did it for 6 months. Yay! Oh, we gotta bring some levity here, because this stuff is really, really powerfully hurtful stuff. And I think also in this moment, my laughter is just linking to, this is also my suffering. This is my history. So my laughter is not only for the levity of the sake of the video, my laughter is the acknowledgement of, ouch, I've done this. I really have done this. Okay. You will believe that your assessment of your partner and of the relationship is the right way of seeing the situation. You will demand that your partner get on board with improving how he or she treats you. You will be very articulate when pointing out to your partner all the ways that he or she is clueless to your needs. You will refer to your communication as speaking your truth. This one is really, oh gosh, if you really hear this one. You will refer to we give ourselves permission to be so abrasive, but we don't see it as abrasive to the other person. We just call it speaking our truth. We congratulate ourselves for seeing the dynamic, but then we also, the fact that we can blurt it out with such a raw delivery, a very, very direct delivery, it's going to be received, or it comes with, and it impacts the other person as abrasive. And especially, chances are, if you're sharing this with someone who, quite honestly, is a little clueless to what is going on, and someone who needs to be more avoidant and hold back, that in your bulldozing or your railroading the truth, you're actually energetically just, bombarding the person with the dysfunctional energy. I don't know what else to call it, but this dysfunctional energy. And so I'm just acknowledging that we confuse ourselves by saying, well, oh, I'm so honest, I'm so sharing my truth, I'm speaking my truth. And in fact, we simultaneously, the word I want is aggression. This is a dynamic of aggression. So you will refer to your communication as speaking your truth, while oblivious to the fact that by doing so, you're actively undermining trust when you objectify your partner as someone who is damaged or broken. And when the relationship gets really, really bad, and when I say really bad, I mean either the tension between the two people is just off the charts and it's painful for everybody, or really bad in that we all see the writing on the wall that the relationship is not good, not salvageable, that we turn up the volume, we up the ante, and we might even start calling each other names. And really, and when we so can't get our needs met, many of us are not rooted in being mean or want to call our partner name. We resort to name calling out of a kind of temper tantrum of just feeling so frustrated, like, I'm not going to have emotional closeness. I'm not going to have emotional vulnerability. I'm not going to have emotional connection. I'm not going to have warmth and love and the closeness that I really wanted in this relationship. And it's linking to my history of all the previous times it didn't happen. And it's linking to the history and of connecting with my family and certain family members where it didn't happen there either. And I am so upset of this not happening, I am going to turn up the volume and start acting out I'm going to really blurt out really strong statements, and I'm just going to tell you that it's your fault, and I'm probably going to call you names and say you're damaged or you're broken. And those might not be your preferred names. I mean, some people get really nasty and they engage in, if you've been in it, you know what it's like to be nasty and be on the receiving end and or dole it out. But what happens once we start really labeling the identity of our partner, objectifying our partner as really saying like, you are lacking something, there is something wrong with you. We have entered a new chapter of this dysfunctional dance where it is very, very, very hard to repair that and get back to a place where you both are relating as equals and you see your partner as someone who you can bring adoration to, and someone who you respect, and someone who you allow to shine in the goodness of who they are. And if you're hanging on to linking their identity to being flawed, broken, inadequate, something is wrong with you. If you do this, it is really, really hard to repair that and get back to a place where there's going to be some mutual respect and ability to care for your partner and not see them as less than. So this whole kind of thinking, this dysfunctional cycle is really, it's pulling us into a process of blaming the other partner and then concluding, well, see, they are less than, and now I'm going to assign them, I'm going to assign them that identity. And this is where we get, after the relationship when it ends, how people for years and years later will forever refer to their partner as the asshole, or they'll refer to their partner as, other choice words, the messed up one, oh yeah, wasn't that when that happened, wasn't that when I was with, the messed up one, wasn't that then when I was with that jerk who, behaved so, and we'll be so invested in giving the other person this identity. So that heads up, that's a really asterisk right there. When you start doing this, when you notice that that's where you're at in this cycle, that's a good indicator things are going to continue to crash and burn because you're co-creating, co-participating in fueling this dysfunctional pattern. You will refer to your communication as speaking your truth while oblivious to the fact that by doing so, you are actively undermining trust when you objectify your partner as someone who is damaged and broken. You might convince yourself that seeing your partner as broken is coming from a sincere place of empathy. You might believe that you really care. There's a part of you care, but your words and your behaviors are not very caring. You might believe that you really care that he or she finally gets the help needed in order to heal. It's all about the other person needs to heal, because you don't need to heal. If they heal, then the relationship will improve. It's always, focused on, they're at the crux of the problem. This means you believe that getting the relationship you want is dependent on your partner healing or changing. When this doesn't happen fast enough, you become bizarrely fixated on psychoanalyzing your partner and diagnosing him or her with everything from depression to alcoholism to autism to attention deficit disorder, as well as now having a personality disorder stemming from pathological narcissism. There, I said it. Do you see how we do this? Now, asterisk, quick side note, I'm not arguing if people are narcissistic. Don't go down that route and polarize the conversation. I don't care about that. Yes, some people are narcissistic. Yes, abuse happens. We're talking about our relationship to labeling another person to collect evidence to fuel our perception that they're the problem. it still might be true that this person is depressed. It still might be true that this person is an alcoholic. It still might be true that this person has any number of mental health concerns that are impacting their ability to be available. But we're not defining it based upon proving if it is or isn't true. We're looking at how you link your aggression and your need to fight for a relationship that is not working out by making sure you collect enough evidence to label the other person as the problem. So you will Google whatever, you came up with is pretend it's depression. You'll Google depression. You'll buy books on depression. You'll sit down and say, honey, I realize what's going on. You're really messed up, and I realize you've been messed up many years, and it obviously comes from your family, and you're really depressed. You're alcoholic. You use alcohol. You're alcoholic to self-medicate, and because you're so depressed, you can't even see how you're treating me. And this is all about you, and you're the identified patient. And if you get your shit together, we could be in a happy relationship, and then maybe we could go on vacation to Bermuda. But until then, you're the mess, you're the identified patient, there's something wrong with you, and now I want to give you the label. And if I don't get enough satisfaction, I'm going to turn up the volume, up the ante, and I'm going to increase your diagnosis to the point where you have a personality disorder. You see, this is all not working out because he or she has a personality disorder. Now again, in this moment, hear me, I'm not creating black and white thinking to challenge what, some people do have personality disorders. It's a better way of phrasing it, what we know statistically, is many, many people have tendencies that mirror certain aspects of personality disorders when in situations where they are stressed out or they need to provide an adaptive response to cover up their own distress or their own fear. And the way in which they do it is going to appear in certain, a range, a continuum of adaptive responses that are the tendencies of that personality disorder. That's a bit more true to the percentages of the number of people who seem to think that they have stumbled upon a particular partner who has a personality disorder. It's better yet to say that these qualities are coming out and being seen in the person, but also my point here is that we're not even talking about if that is or isn't true. We're not even diagnosing it. We're not even going to Google to list the bullet points of what are the symptoms of XYZ, what is the behaviors of XYZ. That's where we're so codependent on focusing on the other person's messed up life, and we're so codependent and we've lost our sense of self at this point, and we want to so immerse ourselves into proving, you see, there's something wrong with you. And if you can get your shit together, then you'll be able to love me. And doesn't that dynamic sound familiar in your family history? If only somebody else in the family could have done XYZ, then they would have been able to love you better, more differently, and embrace the preciousness of who you are as a child and really get to know you and see you and understand you and fall into some deep resonance of aligning with your being and really want to know you. Who doesn't want that? And you didn't get that probably in your family. I'm making assumptions here, but for many of us, we didn't get that. And then so we find a partner and then we don't get that with our partner. And then now we have to fight to try to prove, to get the person on board, please heal, do something, please work on your mental illness. You're so mentally ill. And if you heal your mental illness, then you'll be able to love me and I'll be able to feel connected and get the relationship I've always wanted, especially the fantasy one I've created from day one when I met you, because I didn't really get to know you. I've been fueling this whole story based upon my unintegrated longing and unintegrated attachment trauma, which is fueling this insecure, attached relating. Oh my gosh, do you feel overwhelmed yet? Yes, take a breath. Almost done. I'm going to read that part again. Almost done. You might convince yourself that seeing your partner as broken is coming from a sincere place of empathy. You might believe that you really care that he or she finally gets the help needed to heal. This means you believe that getting the relationship you want is dependent on your partner healing or changing. When this doesn't happen fast enough, you'll become bizarrely fixated on psychoanalyzing your partner and diagnosing him or her I didn't include, parentheses, as the identified patient. You make him the identified patient, him or her, with everything from depression to alcoholism to autism to attention deficit disorder, as well as now having a personality disorder stemming from pathological narcissism. You will promote yourself as either having already done your healing work. You don't need to do, you're so advanced. You're so advanced here. And I'm so sorry, my voice sounds mocking. I put myself in, I'm so advanced. I'm so advanced. Come on, Ugh. But nonetheless, as, incredibly aware or whatever healing work I have done, I still repeat this pattern. Ugh. I've learned, I love, there's a teaching in Buddhism of renunciation, which is the realization of the pattern that we're undoing, and we're renouncing, saying, I'm not doing this, I just cannot. And the teaching of how it was presented to me is that the teaching of renunciation is the teaching of ugh. And so you just have this feeling of just like, ugh, oh, I'm doing it again, it's happening, ugh. A lot of renunciation going on here. You will promote yourself as either having already done your healing work. This is how we protect our own fragility. This is how we protect our own insecurities. This is how we protect our immaturity. And it's really complex, layered stuff of a lot of smoke and mirrors. And it's also confusing and complex because we can, like, in some sense, we have done a lot of our work. We have read a lot of books. We have done healing. We have gone to therapy. But we then use that in a way to bolster our ego, to continue to objectify the other person as being the one who is, forgive me for saying it this way, the one who's fucked up. They're fucked up. I'm not, because I've done my work. Oh my gosh, when we do that, we're continually supporting, alienating each other, and we're not gonna, the reason why I'm saying this is not to give us a hard time for the fact that we do it, but to point out when we do this, we're not getting our needs, we're not gonna get our needs met. This is not gonna endear anybody to want to be close to you. And you, at the end of this process, are still gonna be alone and lonely and empty and isolated and wandering through your life saying, why don't I have a partner? Why can't I be in a relationship? Well, because you and I do this, and we really have to be honest with ourselves about how part of the whole process is this whole section number 4, video number 4. This is rooted in aggression. There is so much aggression, and it's rooted in rage, which I might mention that here. I know at some point I mentioned it, but it might be the next one. You will promote yourself as either having already done your healing work or eagerly willing to do more work, and therefore just need your partner to get with the program, so to meet you on your level. There's this whole idea of like, you're on some level and they're all, good luck, they gotta hurry up and figure it out. During this period, you will talk obsessively with others. You'll just loop and of all the dynamics. This happened, and he said this and she said this, and we had. During this period, you'll talk obsessively with others about what's wrong with your partner. You're just going to constantly collect evidence to keep proving how they have just so failed you. They just keep failing you. And this comes back to what I said at the beginning of this one, which is about the impossibility, the looping and the constant collecting evidence to prove how they're failing you is reinforcing the impossibility, because we just don't have the wherewithal or the ability to leave. We just won't make a choice to say, I'm not doing this anymore. Our brain is coded in such a way that we're in a double bind. We perceive this to be the greatest fear we have, a fear of abandonment, and that we cannot let this one go. We must force being together and make it work, even if that means disparaging my partner's character and telling them that they're a messed up human being, in hopes that it will rattle them enough that they would want, out of love and some great, insight, to want to be with you. It's just not a nurturing environment to want to change and grow. And when we do this, we hurt the other person. And in the process, the longer we stay, we are losing, our spirit is wilting, and we're losing our sense of self. Oh gosh, painful stuff. During this period, you will talk obsessively with others about what's wrong with your partner, peppered with statements like, can you believe he or she treats me like this? And do you see how he or she's hurting me? There's this constant like retelling the story. It's like that's the nature of trauma mind loops. It starts looping, and it has this, it's called intrusion. When the symptom of intrusion can impact us in many different ways, but one component of how it affects our cognition is that we find ourselves looping in a story. And if this is coming from a place of unintegrated attachment trauma, one reason why we just keep telling the story, he did this, he did this, she did this, she did this, can you believe that? Can you believe that? And even the moment we hang up the phone and we're finished talking about it for an hour and a half, we immediately call the next person 10 minutes later after we had a bathroom break and got a new iced tea, and we call the new person and we just tell the story all over again. And it's like we cannot get enough. We are so not satiated, because that's trauma, and that's the attachment trauma, looping and looping. It will never resolve itself, but we're trying to make sense of it by gathering details and information. But in our nervous system, we're just going haywire. I mean, this is just anxiety and panic. It's called primal panic. This primal panic feeling of this isn't working. This person doesn't love me the right. We're not feeling. I don't have reassurance. We're not connected. Almost done. 2 more sentences, and we're almost done here. During this period, you will talk obsessively with others about what's wrong with your partner, peppered with statements like, "Can you believe he or she treats me like this? And do you see how he or she's hurting me?" In this dynamic, you'll make yourself out to be the victim. There, I said that word. Ouch! Do you hear it? I'm sorry. Take it with a grain of salt. Might not be true. Might be true. Might not be true. You have to figure this out. In this dynamic, you'll make yourself out to be a victim, ignoring the fact that you picked this person. Do you remember video number 1, section number 1, the very first sentence? It all goes, you pick this, you have created this. In this dynamic, you'll make yourself out to be the victim, ignoring the fact that you picked this person as a partner in the first place, and you choose to stay. You choose to stay there, which is sort of not true. I mean, it is true. It is true. It's not true in that you are still under the influence of attachment trauma, and your brain is so perceiving that this is a life or death situation. It's just not even a feasible option to not be there. It's like, think of a child. So much of this is linked to family dynamics. A child cannot leave a parent. For a child to consciously, imagine a 10-year-old, and some people run away from your family, but that's, oftentimes when there's a really horrendous abuse going on. When a child, and even then the child will still have longing for the parent. Thus the confused nature of when there's different levels of extreme abuse going on. But just imagine a 10-year-old cannot really contemplate and really say, you know what, I think I'm not really happy with how I'm realizing I'm emotionally ignored in my family, so I think I'm just gonna pack my bags and go. The psyche can have that it is not coded in our brain to even remotely think about moving away from the tribe, from the family, from the safe base, even if that base is not really safe. But it's just like, nope, this is what you came in life with, and you make it work, make it work, make it work. And it's that same kind of survival, make it work component of the brain that's where the trauma links to it's like a little haywire. And we're in this dysfunctional, unhealthy relationship, but we just are under, our brain is just saying, make it work, 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 make it work. Ah. Okay. Same thing I've already said, empathy to you. Take this with a grain of salt. It might apply, might not. Figure out what pieces do and what don't. This is painful stuff. Empathy to all of us who suffer from these types of cycles. And I hope you can have moments when my laughter comes in, can enjoy the levity that brings, because we have to be able to also make fun of ourselves because after you see that you've done this 4 or 5 times in your lifetime, as painful it is, I mean, we just have to sort of laugh at how, no words. I have no words to even finish that sentence. So if you want to get this document, as I've already said, I'll repeat, go to alanrobarge.com/cycle. This is the content that we're talking about in the community membership website. If you want to engage with other like-minded people to really uncover these dynamics and share some of your personal story, to begin to gather resources, to talk about asking advice and offering feedback in a way that we're going to think of other ways, new ways of creating healthier, secure cycles, where if this is a dysfunctional cycle, well, what is a healthier cycle? Let's map that out. I want to have that I want to make those videos. So get the document. If you're interested in learning more about the membership community website, go to alanrobarge.com/community. Both of these links are in the description here on your YouTube. And subscribe. If you like this video, please subscribe. More videos just like it. In fact, this content is going to be one more video, section number 5 of the document. This is a series of 5 videos, and I don't know if you can see that, a series of 5 videos, and the last one's coming up. This is number 4. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.